It took me years to realize that none of those memories were separate. For a long time, I treated them like pieces of childhood that didn't belong together. The house we avoided, the street we ran through, the man who sat in silence at the park, and the shortcut that slowly disappeared from everyone's routine. Each memory lived on its own, small and uncomfortable, like moments you don't question until you're older. Welcome back to Cursed Whispers. Coming back to the neighborhood as an adult felt different from how I imagined it would. Everything looked smaller, quieter, almost fragile compared to how large it felt when we were kids. The streets seemed shorter, the park less crowded, the air heavier with memories that didn't fully belong to me anymore. I started at the old house. Standing across the street from it felt familiar in a way I couldn't explain. The curtains were still closed, the yard hadn't changed. Even the light falling across the windows looked the same as it did years ago. Nothing about it screamed danger, and yet my body reacted before my mind did. That same instinctive shift, the subtle urge to move past it without stopping. As kids, we never talked about why we avoided that house. We just copied each other. Looking back now, I realize we weren't copying each other at all. We were copying the adults. The way they crossed the street, the way they avoided looking directly at it, the way conversations faded when we passed nearby. Fear doesn't always arrive through stories. Sometimes it arrives through observation. Later that evening, I walked down the street we used to run through. I didn't plan to rush, but halfway across I felt my pace quicken anyway. It wasn't panic, just a quiet pressure, like my body remembered something my mind had forgotten. I slowed down deliberately this time. Nothing happened. Cars passed normally, lights flickered on in nearby homes. The street looked exactly the way it always had, and that's what made it unsettling. The absence of visible danger combined with a memory of unease that never fully disappeared. The park was next. The bench where the man used to sit was empty, but the atmosphere felt unchanged. I tried to imagine him there, still, silent, watching without speaking. We never knew his name. We never knew why adults treated him differently. But the behavior around him had shaped us more than any warning could have. I stood there longer than I expected, listening to the sound of wind moving through the trees, thinking about how children learn boundaries without understanding them. The next morning, I passed the entrance to the shortcut. It looked narrower than before, squeezed between aging fences. Grass pushed through cracks in the concrete, and the path felt almost forgotten. For a moment, I considered walking through it, just to prove to myself that nothing was wrong. I didn't. That hesitation told me more than any memory could. That night, curiosity pushed me to search through local archives again. I wasn't looking for a single answer. I just wanted context, something that explained why so many unrelated places felt connected. The documents weren't dramatic. No headlines, no major cases tying everything together, just small reports scattered across years. Complaints about someone being approached near the park, police monitoring around a residential property, notes about increased patrols near certain streets. Each report on its own felt insignificant. Together, they formed something else, a pattern of quiet adjustments, adults changing routines, kids absorbing those changes without explanation, places that remained physically unchanged while socially avoided. I realized then that the neighborhood hadn't been reacting to one event. It had been responding to a series of unresolved situations, not enough to create public panic, but enough to reshape behavior over time. And behavior spreads faster than information. Children don't need details to feel tension. They watch how adults move. They notice where people hesitate, where conversations stop, where silence replaces explanation. That's how the patterns survived. Even now, years later, walking through those same streets feels like stepping into a memory that never fully ended. The house still stands. The street remains open. The bench waits under the streetlight. The shortcut still exists, unchanged. Nothing dramatic marks those places. No signs, no warnings. Just the quiet knowledge carried by the people who live there. The most unsettling part isn't what happened in the past. It's how easily fear became routine, how an entire neighborhood adjusted without ever saying why. And maybe that's the real reason those memories feel connected now. Not because they were part of a single story, but because they were part of a shared silence. Some patterns don't need explanations to last. They live on in the way we walk, the way we avoid certain corners, the way we speed up without realizing it. And even when the stories fade, the behavior remains.